Hi guys, I am incredibly excited to share this video with you. This week I got to speak with LWT Trading, Liquor with Ticker. It was such a privilege to speak to this guy. He is an ex-military economist. So he's got a master's degree in economics and he is a genius. I really love his YouTube videos. I reached out to him on YouTube and he's been brilliant. He got in touch with me straight away and we got to set up this incredible chat where we talk about OPEC, what's happening in the British economy and all these other sort of macroeconomic things as well as microeconomics. He's done a lot of research into BP, British Petroleum, and is a shareholder in that and has a lot of amazing insights. So I hope you enjoyed this video. All right, on to the video.
I need to record and edit a video today for tomorrow, and I don't even have an idea what to do yet. So, yeah, it's today's.
I find that really interesting. I find the challenge for me is often there's just a proliferation of choice.
Yeah, there's too much. Yeah,
there's way too much to talk about. Wanting to try and create a sort of cohesive theme on the channel. So that you're trying to appeal to the same pool of people, or like if you get someone that's interested in that video, they've got multiple other videos to then go to, and it's all kind of obvious.
Yeah. The binge time, as it's called. I don't know if you've seen a channel called Film Booth. That's what he keeps going on about. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one, right? So I just had a video that sort of blew up on my channel in relative view time. It did like, I think 14,000 or something it's on now views. And it was on the conspiracy theory that, you know, the US might have blew up the Nordstrom pipeline. And I tried to put it in a, so basically there's, you know, I don't know how much you know about me, but you okay?
Yeah. All good. Just dropped my mouse. Yeah. That's
no worries. Yeah, so you know, I've got a military background. That's like my first proper job, and there was an article I got sent from a friend who's still in green, and it was saying about a P8 Poseidon plane went off the radar for 3 hours, and usually that's when stuff happens. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I thought it does make more logical sense. And I've been doing a lot of videos on the European energy crisis lately, so I could tie that in and try and put a financial spin on it. But not being a conspiracy theorist. So the whole point of the video was, look, this is a theory. I've checked the data. The data is true in the theory. Whether it's true or not is up to you. Like, you know, that's I got so many crazies in the comments. It was insane.
Yeah, that's what's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Majority of people were good. There was like one person called me a racist, believe it or not.
Wow. What, towards Russians?
No. No, so you know, there's this meme of a small white porn star sat on a couch and some bigger gentleman behind her, and I shared this. You know, the whole point was Europe keeps digging itself into a hole, and it seems smiling and happy of what's going down, and it reminds me of this meme. So I put Europe's flag on the little girl, and then all the gentlemen behind her, I put a flag of Germany, Angola, the EU again, Germany, and the US and Russia. So it was like, you know, they're all like ripping into Europe without Europe even being aware. And that's what I got called racist about. And I'm like, how? It's not racist in even the original meme. So, but cool. So I pinned that comment, and then that guy got loads of abuse from everybody else. And but there were some crazies on there that had to delete saying like, you know, the FBI did it and Weinstein and all this stuff, and then there was the other end of it as well. So like I tried to monitor the comments a little bit logically, but I think I still managed to get a lot of audience, because I put out another video yesterday about the Europeans, you know, taxing the oil companies, hyper taxing them. And said it's basically a form of communism, which it is. It's not capitalist at all to punish a sector, and that video is also performing really well so far in its first 28 hours. It's above average. So
that's a topic that I'm incredibly interested in as well, because just the watering down on Elon Musk used the word don't use the word millionaire as a pejorative. And people are also doing that thing with capitalism and socialism. People really don't seem to know what these words mean. Greed is a different thing to capitalism. Capitalism is where every single transaction, the people are weighing up what's right for them.
Yeah, I mean,
and typically transactions add up to more than the sum of their parts. So you have something that is ultimately useless to you. They have something that is ultimately useless to them. Yeah. You both trade it, and suddenly you have more than what you had before.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so to give you a clue on this video, I was basically saying how, you know, to summarize it in a minute, the purpose of the video was basically saying, look, I get these companies are making record profits. I get that. But that, you know, Europe by its own definition has said it's out of their control. They've been lucky of the war and they're taking advantage of it. Yeah. And it's a basically passing on the blame to these greedy companies, right? That's basically, you know, that's politics in general, right? Blame the others and then you'll get elected.
Yeah.
So, you know, gone are the days where you actually elect somebody on their merits. But so that was like one thing. I mean, I'm a shareholder in BP and some other energy companies. So, you know, that you know, I was very open about that. And I said that, you know, these companies, BP lost, I think it was 7.5 or so, around that figure billion in 2020 when you locked down. You didn't bail them out. You actually said that these companies are not renewable enough. They need to, you know, die. Yeah.
And back then, everyone was enjoying the fact that they'd lowered prices to an insane degree.
Exactly.
I mean, they were paying people to take oil off them. Yeah. The idea that they would profiteer all the time, like they would do that every single day of the week.
So if you go on from 2020 to now and you average out the profits they're making now yearly, they're still making, if you average that out, including the losses, they're still making less than they were in 2019.
Yeah.
So
that's what also people say record profits. It's like, well, yeah, but not
they had record
only
losses
only
ago.
if you change the time period of which the record's set in.
Yeah. So that was my argument. And saying, look, you know, it's and the other thing is as well is, you know, like the guy who heads BP is a guy called Bernard Looney, who in my opinion is one of the best CEOs in the world. Like I think he is severely underrated. I mean, he's been oil all his career. He'll stay in oil. I think he'll retire at BP. I hope he does. And he's been pushing, you know, he's transformed BP into a renewable powerhouse. I mean, they've got the most charging stations in the UK. They've got everything, right? So he's got this whole mantra of shifting BP to net zero by 2030. And I mean, it's an oil company. Like that's insane. So he's got this whole sort of revolutionary renewable agenda, but he wants to keep oil going, just make it cleaner. So he's building a hybrid. Now, BP has invested more in renewable energies every year for the last 5 years than the UK government.
Yeah.
So what are you on about, these dirty oil companies? They're investing more in, you know, these energy companies. It's like the EVs movement, right? If the cars don't adapt to produce EVs, they die. And it's the same with energy companies. If they have to go where the government's going. So Bernard Looney jumped on that. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I love BP, but he's also a very strict and good businessman. So if you're gonna, I mean, the UK is not right, like, thankfully. I mean, that's one thing Liz Truss has done well, in my opinion. But if you're going to hyper tax a company like BP 33% extra on top of their profits, then why should they bother drilling the most? Why don't they just wait a year or two?
Yeah, and also if you're capped at what your profits should be, if there's this sort of thing of what your profits should be, you're going to get what OPEC have just done.
Finish.
Yeah. Or just charge extra and do it slowly throughout the year. And that's exactly what they've done. And this is the thing of like, it's not so much government. I feel like government knows this. The public need to start recognizing that the incentive infrastructure needs to be right. Set up the incentive infrastructure and then...
Absolutely. I mean, look, the most important metric to look at any business, in my opinion, is cash flow, free cash flow, right? Yep. Because everyone looks at like BP's net profits. it's irrelevant, right? It is semi-irrelevant from an investor perspective because, you've got net profits, but then after that, you've still got other expenses that are not included, right? Debt repayment, so on. So if you look at free cash flow, that's literally what they've got left over to reward investors in dividends, buyback shares, or invest in new products, right? So i.e. in this world, it'd be great if they started looking at new oil fields or drilling new gas lines or investing in new wind farms. Who knows? Yeah. So, if you look at this cash flow, these companies are still having record cash flow, and they're deciding to give bigger dividends to investors like me or buying back shares like me because they are not incentivized whatsoever to reinvest into the system to help people out and add more supply of energy. Because these governments have punished these companies for so long, spouting the renewable dream, which clearly isn't ready yet. And, these companies just sat there like, well, what do you want us to do? Every other sector gets some form of reward or some form of benefits for increasing size or adding more jobs or whatever, other than the energy sector. So in this time, the European Union, as an example, I mean, I live in Hungary, not Bulgaria, like some person said in the comments, calling me a racist. I live in Hungary, so I'm in the EU, and I'm, we've the biggest company here is a company called MOL. It's a sort of more of a manufacturer of oil and gas and energy than it is naturally producing it. It does do that too, but they're by far the biggest company here, and most of their product was coming from Russia at a discount. That's been completely, ran down to a hilt, and there's no sign of anything replacing it.
Is that why you got little gas lights in the background?
Well, that's how I heat my house these days. So there's all this like, this agenda behind it. That on that video about energy, there was one comment that sort of, I was thinking about pinning it, but I think he was just miseducated. Because if someone sort of gives me a comment that's completely out there, like, you're a racist or something stupid when it's just talking about economics, I'll pin it and I'll let the audience decide, I think that's a fun thing to do.
It's their comment, so they should be prepared to.
Exactly. If I'm held accountable for my video, you should be held accountable for your comment. So, but one guy on this energy crisis, he said, it's okay for you because you're rich and your opinions are relevant because you openly admitted you've got shares in oil companies. Then he said I was in Bulgaria, which is wrong. And then he said, try living on a surplus income of like having £400 left over at the end of every month or something. I said, my guy, £400 left over at the end of every month. That's what people get paid a salary here.
Yeah.
Right. That's one. You're a rich dude. And second thing is, I pay myself literally £15,000 a year. I have done for 10 years. That's what I live on. Like bills, everything. That's it. So it's I started out, I grew up in a council estate. I was on dinner stamps at school. I joined the military and I found success by living below my means. That's it. Yeah. It's not rocket science. Just the difference is everybody's desperate to get a new iPhone. Difference is everybody hasn't got the discipline. So, if you live below your means, that's the biggest thing people forget. And then it's the effort to invest wisely. It's literal, not hard. I didn't go to college. I self-studied in the army. So there's a big miss sort of, I mean, it's in everything. There's a divide.
There's that thing always sort of, I totally get where the emotion comes from there. And I think politicians are
me too.
People the strongest sense of like, how are you entitled to talk to me about this? And you don't really know about poverty. Have I presume you know about Milton Friedman and his economics. There's a video by him that I really, really enjoyed. Someone asked him that question, and Milton Friedman, I think, is from a deep poverty background as well. But it's like, even if I wasn't, would you insist that your doctor have had cancer before diagnosing you with cancer? And basically, he was just trying to say that you don't have to have gone through poverty to understand how poverty happens, how it occurs, and also more than that, how, what's it called? Just progress works, how we end up with prices going down and more of things.
We have this whole weird world where you have to show you're rich, you have to show it with a Rolex and a Lamborghini, right, on Instagram. Like that's the world we live in. But on the other hand, you're also going to be called, you probably bought, majority of people probably leased the Lamborghini and put the Rolex on a credit card. That's the reality. Yeah. Majority of people, not everyone. So to do that, I'm talking about the average person. But to do that, you're actually putting yourself in a poverty situation, but you're going to get called a show-off rich twat. Do you know what I mean? So it's a weird concept.
A person with a Lamborghini is not a Lamborghini richer. They're a Lamborghini poorer.
Yeah, in a way. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum of the person envious of that person. I don't understand. So we've got a WhatsApp group, we've got a chat room, and my whole thing on it is when people come in and they ask questions and stuff, and I'm said what's your favorite stock? What's this? And I said, look, the S&P 500.
Yeah.
Always has been, always will be. That's it. If the bulk of your wealth is not going, the problem is people are influenced by, and that's why I hear that word influence. People are influenced by that Lamborghini and they want to get rich quick tomorrow. They don't want to enjoy a Lamborghini when they're 68.
Yeah.
But reality is that's the only way you can guarantee it. If you start investing regularly into an S&P or whatever it is, or a global index.
I mean, I'm open about it on my channel. I do a lot of sort of picking individual stocks. The S&P this year certainly is outperforming me. So, take my advice with a pinch of salt this year, because obviously I'm losing more than the S&P. But when the bull run comes, I feel like I will probably outperform.
You should outperform. Yeah, I mean it's weird, right? Because when I was doing the channel myself, I was getting a lot of success with individual stocks and stuff. But then I realized it's cyclical, and then I started seeing the same comments over and over again that Alibaba's my biggest position. It's no secret. I'm down on it. And I'm still today continuing to slowly eat at it and buy into it. My average is really coming down, which is good. And but I realized I need to slow down this content, because I was also at the same time saying we're on the edge of a market crash, folks. Just be prepared. You can go back a year and a half ago. I was putting out that video.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 years even. And, them videos didn't get any traction.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is proving my point. We're in a bubble, in a way,
But Michael Burry just posted a tweet the other day now saying, I'm starting to feel greedy.
Yeah, I seen that. The thing is with Michael Burry, you never know if he's a troll or not, if he's trolling on his tweets. But the thing is so there's an index. Let me show you this. There's a thing called
Fear and Greed Index. Yeah.
The VIX. Do you know what the VIX is?
Not the VIX. I've heard about the Fear and Greed Index, but not the VIX.
Let me just get this up for you. So there's a thing called the VIX, right? Which is the volatility S&P 500 index. It's basically how volatile it is on a daily basis, right? And it measures it, and then it's got its trends. There's a guy called Nick Colas. Every single person should go and watch Nick Colas's videos. Watch everything on YouTube. Me and Nick have been speaking quite a lot. He's a really nice guy. Literally grew up on Wall Street. Like literally, he lives there.
Nick Colas.
Colas, yeah, Colas. Now, him and a girl called Jessica formed a company called Data Trek, and what they do is they basically put out a newsletter Monday to Friday with what's happening in the market and some cool data on like a trend or whatever. Like the one they put out, I got it this morning at 2 a.m. Was the correlation between CPI and oil. Energy prices from 1970 to now was an average of 0.7, but since 2019, it's gone up to 0.9. So it's really in-depth data. So it's more aimed at institutional investors and people who know what they're doing. But he's a big component of the VIX. So what he says is basically, he's more of a trader too, I think. But whenever the VIX gets over this 36 level, like I don't want to quote the number, but it's like 90-something% of the time, it pops over and comes back down. Now, if I put let's put a SPY chart on the S&P 500 and try and get it on the same time frame here. Second. 1 second, just let me line this up. So if you basically bought in at every single time the S&P spikes above 36, you'll see it's like a little trough in the market. So that's another one. And then the next time it spiked was this one. Okay, that one didn't really work. But the point is every time the VIX pops over, that's the time to have an extra nibble at the market.
What was that time back? That enormous, ridiculous spike?
That was COVID.
That was COVID.
So that was the other thing. So basically, there's a theory. I mean, there's many different theories on the VIX, right? Is if it goes over 36 and stays there for several days, then it's a bigger problem than just volatility. So if we go back and we have a look at since the VIX started, all these spikes that went and stayed. So this is COVID.
Yep.
This is the correction we had in 2018. It lasted a couple of days, but even then it was only literally 3 days. This one, again, was another volatility. I think that might have been Trump or something like that. This one.
And so what does this show? The amount of trading going on in the day?
So it's the volatility. So it's how much the S&P is up or down on the day.
Right.
So it's just volatility. So it's like there was
10% volatility on this day. That would be like a big.
Absolutely, yeah. That would be a big spike. But it's continuous volatility as well. So it's not like just that day. It's like the last few days.
Yeah, so, I find that sort of stuff quite interesting.
Yeah, so you've got, the dot-com bubble, you've got the 2008 crash, you got the 2011 when we had that little correction after that. Yeah. So, but they're the only outliers, and every other time. But this is the thing, right? Is if you go from let's say the 2011 crash, this region here up until COVID, that's this crazy bull run we had in the S&P 500.
Yeah,
there wasn't really many opportunities to add.
But it would have told you a couple of times that there was going to be
a pullback, a pullback that you should be buying into. Now you should, my thesis on it, and this is mine, not Nick's, is look, you should be buying in regularly every month. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you heard that bang.
That's absolutely fine.
My thing is every time. So you buy every month, you buy quarterly, whatever you're doing. But then every time it breaks 36, have an extra nibble with your Christmas bonus or whatever it is. That's sort of the way I work it. But yeah, that's
so what's the buy-in? Like, is this only, to me, it only tells you when you should exit. So what's the sort of buy-in?
Yeah, so for example, now again, I'm probably butchering what Nick's saying, so don't sue me, Nick. So Nick's whole thing is basically right now it's a trader's market, it's not an investor's market. So every time it gets sort of above this level, he's going to buy, and then he's going to sell some in this level.
Right.
So basically, what he's saying here is this means that the market, and to be honest, I've been checking it, and again, if we put up the S&P 500, just in sort of a more recent time period. Again, this isn't going to be perfectly aligned. Bit more that way. So, for example, if you go on these two lines here, so if you sold when the VIX hit the bottom, you'd be at this little top here. If you sold at this little bottom, you'd be at this little top here, meaning like you're not going to participate in this downwards action here. So that's his whole thesis. So again, if you bought in these highs means you're buying in these bottoms. Do you know what I mean? So there is a correlation. It's like an inverse correlation.
And how long has he been doing this for?
I'd say the guy, I don't know how old he is right now, but pretty much, I don't want to say, I don't know if his dad was on Wall Street, but he's been investing basically all of his life. He's always worked on Wall Street. I mean, you can see interviews from the guy from the 90s. He was actually famously, he was the first person on Wall Street, like on Wall Street, on TV saying Bitcoin's interesting.
Wow.
Let me see when that interview was.
I'll take a look for it. I'll have it.
There was an interview.
I'm sure I'll be able to find it.
There was an interview in 2017 that's on YouTube. But I don't know when that's like just showing you he was the first person. Yeah. But yeah, have a look, put it on screen now. And it's an insane. I mean, he's basically saying he doesn't understand cryptocurrency fully, but the movement's real and there's a need for it. Therefore, there's a value.
You don't need. No, that's what I think. It's such a fascinating topic, and maybe we should get into a little bit of the pound now, because basically all that Bitcoin did was make me realize how bad our currencies were. So I don't necessarily care about how good cryptocurrencies are.
Yeah,
it just made me realize, oh wow, of course you could build some code that eliminates the flaws in our current fiat currencies. But yeah, you don't know how your iPhone works. But
yeah, it's a good analogy.
Functions.
Yeah.
And yeah,
cryptocurrency for me is a weird one. So I first stumbled on Bitcoin two times. Let's say two times. One as a soldier when I was in. This is like going back in 2009.
Wow. God. I hadn't heard of it at that point.
I didn't buy into it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then otherwise I wouldn't be sat here. Throwing $100 back then, you'd be a billionaire or something. But then I heard again about it in I want to say 2013. One of my clients in Budapest came in, and his wife, God bless her, she came in and she's like, "What about this Bitcoin thing? We want to put a couple of grand in there." And I was like, "Look, don't. Openly, I didn't know much about it, but I said, look, this is your pension money. And I still stand by that. It shouldn't be your pension money going in this. But yeah, God, Jesus, every time I see that couple now, they're like, yeah, they're a little bit
Sorry,
upset.
Guys.
Yeah. So, because I think it just broke like $250 back then.
Yeah.
Something like that. I might be wrong. There might be $2.5 grand, but so it was a little bit insane. How do I say this? So I've spent time to learn about blockchain, how it works. I'm still not a guru on it or anything. I've made friends here with a guy called Andras. He was the first Hungarian to write a book on cryptocurrency. So like he's my guru in that aspect, and I always speak to him. And he was mining Ethereum when it was like less than 100 and stuff like this. So he's a wizard. And the madness is blockchain technology is much more efficient than our monetary system. That's the reality. The other big reality is cryptocurrency will never be allowed to exist while we have governments.
Yeah, that's the one I hear, and I'm not sure if I agree with. I mean, the Venezuelan government's allowed it. I know these are very different economies, but
absolutely. Well, let me put it another way to you, right? When America invaded the Gulf twice, when the UK was at pre-colonial war in the States, when the Dutch East India Company was getting attacked in Asia, all of these countries at the time. There's a great book by Ray Dalio called The Changing World Order. At this time, all of these countries used their biggest power, which was their home currency, which was the world's dominant currency back in these time periods. And that's ultimately the biggest power. If you go back to the times when Holland was the biggest economy in the world, in I think it was the 1700s, their currency was used between, cities in India and Malaysia. It's all the way across the world back then, before even more ships didn't make it. So this is then it would just be a case of, well, we'll just stop that supply of currency going to your nation back then, so you can't trade with the rest of the world. So it will always be weaponized. And if you think about the American government right now, that's the standard. They're going to do what they can to keep all of that power, because that's right now. The dollar is strong, not because of America.
I know. But the irony is, in those times of war, their power was, we're going to stop your supply of the US dollar. Then they would go, well, okay, we'll use Bitcoin then.
But then let me put it on another foot. You use Bitcoin, then America, the regulators come out, as they're already prepping to do, and say, you're now not allowed to use Bitcoin in the States. What happens to Bitcoin?
Well, this is the thing that Milton Friedman says, and he doesn't. I can't actually remember. I think he's passed away now, right? But he was talking about inflation back in the 70s and 80s, and he says that new money always comes in, good money always replaces bad money. And it's true. And he talks about how the US dollar started. It's this great 10-minute little video that only 12,000 views have on YouTube. And brilliant, but it was made for TV long time ago.
And,
yeah.
I think I've seen it.
It's just, but he talks about how the dollar used to be based on tobacco, and the currency was tobacco. Yeah. And actually, at first, you used to see people waiting at the docks with a kilo of tobacco to trade for women from Europe and stuff like that, who they would be their prospective wives. Yeah.
Wives.
But then over time, paper replaced the tobacco. And when you were trading with tobacco, you'd use your absolute worst tobacco. So stuff you'd never want to smoke. And basically the tobacco was getting worse and worse and worse, until the point where the government were like, okay, we need to step in and regulate the tobacco and stuff like that. And eventually it just got so ridiculous. The price got so inflated because they were printing so much money that represented tobacco that didn't exist, that eventually they moved on to an entirely different currency, which was gold, and or just whatever else existed. Now, all fiat currencies, what they have to battle with is they have the power to devalue their currency. They have the power to print money. That they have to battle with the fact that they shouldn't use that. Yeah. In order to beat Bitcoin, they have to 100% battle with that every single year. And I
100% agree with the thesis. I mean, the idea is your economy needs to stay in line or outpace the deflation you're creating, which politicians are failing at. I mean, here's the mad thing, right? There was now this is going off on a little tangent, but I promise I'll come back. Is if you go back in 200 years in British Parliament, let's use the British example. Both our audiences are mainly British. Is the people in Parliament, the people who had an opinion, the people who knew when the day was to vote, the people who they were all somewhat educated in something.
Yeah.
Wealthy people. You can call it wealthy, but reality is 200 years ago, that was an educated person. Right? So things have changed. Now, when Brexit is a great example, right? So I grew up in Teesside, in an ex-mining village, all right, in the middle of nowhere. So everyone there's staunch Labour, left-leaning as you can be, never going to even think about it. I was the outlier because I joined the military, who's traditionally right-leaning or a little bit more. And I always go on the aspect is, look, my vote should always, and I think it's normal for a person, is saying my vote should always be able to be won by either side. Because then you're voting in somebody who you think, at the end of the day, we should all want someone in who's going to do the best job. When Donald Trump got elected, I spoke to a friend of mine who's she's an ex-Navy officer she's Asian. She's married to a black woman who's an ex-Navy officer. So obviously they were like the arch enemies of Trump when he got elected. And I said, look, the guy's a dick. I give you that. But do you want him to do a good job or a bad job? And they openly said, well, actually, we want him to do a good job. And I'm like, well, look, let's give him. Anyway, long story short, I was wasting my words. But the point is like, whoever gets elected, surely we want them. Look, it's not my guy. I didn't vote for them. Cool. But hopefully they don't, burn the country down. And so I think there's been this big misconcept now. When Brexit was happening, I went home, I've got a degree in economics, and I go home and I say, look, there is an argument here that the European Union is not growing, that they have bad policies, and more importantly, they're not willing. David Cameron literally went to them and said, we need to change policies for UK and have.
It's funny that we must have had the exact same view on Brexit, which is that I don't trust the British government to do it well. Yes. So I didn't vote for it. But at the same time, it is potentially a very good thing.
Yeah, if it was done right. And I said, that as soon as the EU to me said, look, what you're going to do about it, we're not going to budge. I was like, this isn't a good economy. This isn't a good democracy. This isn't willing to innovate. There's a problem here. So at least listen to the argument, right? So, but then, you've got, I remember sat in a pub, it was around Christmas time. I think it was just before Brexit, and it was obviously the talking point. And I was sat there talking to my mate's wife. Now, my good friend, Jamie, he's a butcher. Right? Nothing against butchers. Actually, I envy them. I think I could be a butcher at some points. It'd be much easier. And his wife, who's, God bless her, she's a part-time dinner lady and a stay-at-home mom. And they're both sat educating me on Brexit and economics. And I'm sat here like, guys, I've got a master's in economics. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you can see they've just read a Facebook post somewhere, then they're taking the bits that they could understand and put it back. And that's sort of the problem we have right now, is going back to currencies and going back to governments, going back to everyone. Everyone's got an opinion, but they're not willing to change that opinion regardless of the facts or the figures presented to them. And I think that's the biggest problem we have.
Well, I find a lot of the time as well is it's very easy I could go to basically any company and pull statistics that could cause an emotive reaction in either direction. And when I'm looking at a business, I find it very hard to work out if it can be very challenging to work out, is it a growing business? Is it a profitable one? Is this, that's a real challenge that people are paid a lot of money to do.
Yeah.
And so
I have something.
When I hit the second someone goes, they made $1 billion per year, it's like, are you talking about revenue? That's the first question I go for. And they're like, and it's like, oh, you don't know that. And it's like, but then I get more interested. I try to just take statistics out of it and go to the emotive points that they're concerns.
This is why whenever somebody asks me about, like, look, the big thing is when like Palantir and Untitled Chapter and all these companies with their revenues that were growing were there. And I put out my fair share of videos. I was a bull on Virgin Galactic at one point. I said, look, their revenues are growing. The numbers, if they sell the tickets, actually add up, and the risk reward was there. But do not get burnt. Put a stop loss in, do this. So actually, I'm probably one of the few people that made money on Virgin Galactic, on Tattooed Chef, on Palantir, because I didn't want a home run. Like that's the other thing. I haven't got enough money to get a Lamborghini, and I don't want a Ford Focus. So I'm just going to hold on. And then next thing you know, you actually owe a Ford Focus because you use leverage. So that's the reality of the world. And people don't want to hold themselves, the ape movement with AMC. I just watched the documentary the other day on, it's on the Wall Street Bet saga. And there was a girl there whose husband was in the military. And I'm just sat there. I genuinely hate that woman. Because she's got this platform and she's basically saying it was a hedge fund's fault. And I said, no, it was AMC's fault for having a business that was failing. That's it. They've a company has a responsibility to its shareholders. The board has a responsibility to its shareholders who have invested their hardworking money to make sure that business is successful and turns a profit. They hadn't turned a profit in years. They had massive amounts of debt, and you're blaming the hedge fund. Yeah. Are you real? In
fact, people, because of movies like The Big Short, that have had a positive net impact in getting people into finance, but they created an image that shorting is hurting.
Yeah, but that's always been against.
But actually, it's the reason that we have to have shorting, because it's just a way of ensuring big institutions' investments. Arguably,
you run a dangerous game if you say you can only bet with a company when there's a simple way. The problem is people don't wrap their head around what shorting actually is. This blonde woman in this, and when I say blonde, it doesn't mean that she's in any way not intelligent.
Blonde has nothing to do with her intellect.
There's several women in the show, and she's the only blonde one. She said something along the lines of, shorting is, you're basically betting against good companies that they can die, and you're going against the economy and stuff. And I'm like, this company was not contributing.
Chapter 6, any shorter, even a retail investor that's had no experience, they have a thesis as to why the company is bad. So
that's the point. I mean, so again, it just comes down to a lack of education and willingness to look at the other side. So if you go back 2 years ago, I put out loads of videos saying, look, GameStop, AMC, it's a gamble. It could moon. I could be wrong. If you want to play small, but I can't wait to short this puppy. Yeah. And I did, and I made money. And the thing is, you're betting against, the dirty hedge fund said, look, it's their game. They wrote the rules. And trust me, they're much more intelligent than the average bear. So if you think you're going to, we got Melvin Capital. Well, you didn't really get them, and they're not Goldman Sachs. you know? So
Right.
you didn't change the game. Actually, what you've done is if you did destroy some of the smaller hedge funds, that market share is going to be eaten up by the bigger hedge funds, which means actually the game's going to be more bent. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense. And, you know, circling all the way back to cryptocurrency, this is the same argument, right? Is with cryptocurrency, majority of investors are buying into the speculation, not the actual product. So Bitcoin itself will never, ever replace a currency. Bitcoin physically cannot. I've got a video coming out soon. You know, the average transactions and how much it can do on its network currently, and how they're, you know, going to use the Lightning Network potentially to increase that flow. But reality is, it still takes about 19 minutes to approve the average transaction. You're not going to wait in Tesco for that to happen. And it's already chock-a-block. So that time, like it's going to be pretty much impossible for that time to come down to less than a minute. And we live in a world where people want stuff now. I mean, we tap our credit card at Starbucks and people get annoyed that it didn't go through. So Bitcoin's got no chance. Ethereum, I like Ethereum. I like the idea of the network you can build, because I can see, if we have a revolution as an example, which who knows is possible, if we had that type of, you know, we don't want to use the dollar and somehow the governments couldn't control it. I don't know how they would lose that much control, but let's say they did. I can see a government going to Ethereum and saying, we'll build a US dollar on Ethereum's network. So they're going to regulate for us, which is not too dissimilar to what happened in the UK when we got rid of the monarchy and put a parliament in and then put the monarchy underneath it. So it'd be a similar sort of setup where, you know, the US dollar still has power, it's still in control of it, but it's got a sort of overriding third party, if you want to call it that.
I'm sorry, I really want to continue this chat. I'm really getting into it, but I've got to get ready to go to work and stuff like that. Thank you so much for coming on with me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, let's do it again. Definitely. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave the studio. Cheers. Bye.
Hey guys, if you're seeing this, it means you have watched this video all the way through. Thank you so much for doing that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please remember to like and subscribe for more content like this. And also, if you want to go check out LWT's channel, there's a link in the description, or just search LWT and his channel should come up. He's absolutely brilliant. He goes into a wide variety of topics on his channel in great detail. And as I said in the beginning of this video, he has a master's degree in economics. So he's got real insight as to how companies work and their finances. LWT, thank you so much for coming on. It was absolutely brilliant chatting to you. And I hope to do this again sometime soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.